Hello, you're watching 7Edition with me, Muhammad Ahmad Hamdan. The headlines. Year 6 pupil under remand for allegedly raping a 4-year-old girl. Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan's trial over land deals kicks off. And Beijing urges for criminal probe over latest violence. Good evening. Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan Tunku Mansor's trial on his charge of accepting 2 million ringgit from a businessman over land deals kicked off today. The Kuala Lumpur High Court was told that the prosecution will furnish evidence that Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan Tunku Mansor allegedly sought up to 6 million ringgit from a property developer for by-election funds. The prosecution team said it will also prove that a cheque of 2 million ringgit was delivered to the former minister. Deputy Public Prosecutor DPP Julia Ibrahim was reading the opening statement at the start of Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan's trial for allegedly taking the bribe from developer Asset Kaya Mas's director Tan Sri Chai Kin Kong. Julia said the prosecution would also present evidence that Tan Sri Chai gave the 2 million ringgit in a Hong Leong Islamic Bank cheque dated June 14, 2016, owned by Asset Kaya Mas to Tat Mansori Holding Sdn Bhd, of which the former minister is the biggest shareholder. The only by-elections in June 2016 were the twin polls in Kuala Kangsar and Sungai Besar, held on June 18th that same year. She added that the prosecution would present evidence to show that Tan Sri Chai, as Asset Kaya Mas director, had submitted a January 26, 2015 letter to Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan personally for the company's proposal to buy 2 plots of land in Bandar Tun Razak in Kuala Lumpur, measuring a total of about 1.6 hectares for the purpose of building affordable housing priced below 200,000 ringgit and apartments. The evidence would apparently show Datuk Seri Tunku Adnan played an active role in the proposed project. The former Federal Territories Minister oversaw the Kuala Lumpur City Hall, as well as the administration of 3 federal territories of Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya and Labuan. The hearing continues before High Court Judge Zaini Mazlan. 3 friends were acquitted by the Muar High Court to a charge of kidnapping a female doctor 4 years ago. In passing the sentence, Judge Dato' Halijah Abbas ruled that the prosecution had failed to prove a prima facie case against them. The accused were M. Prem Sega, age 37, P. Raymond Raja, 25, and T. Sanjeev Kumar, 24. The 3 were charged with abducting 29-year-old Dr. M. Anita at the Sultanah Fatimah Hospital parking lot on May 6, 2015, with the intention of demanding ransom money. Under the Kidnapping Act, they could be sentenced to death or be jailed for life and whipping if convicted. An air steward was sentenced to 4 years in jail for 2 counts of stealing and breaking into 2 laundromats in Kuala Nerus, Terengganu. Earlier, 39-year-old Remy Izwan Rosali pleaded guilty when the charges were read out before Magistrate Abdul Hayy Salim. Square in Kuala Nerus on June 7th. As for the second charge, he was accused of breaking into a laundromat in Dataran Tembasu on the same day. The court sentenced him to 2 years in jail for each count and ordered the accused to serve the sentence starting today. Meanwhile, Remy Izwan's girlfriend Aimi Shairai Ismail claimed trial to both charges. The court set July 15th for remention. The vaccination of the Orang Asli community from the Batik tribe in Gua Musang, Kelantan has begun in earnest. Since the immunization program began yesterday, 204 Orang Asli in the two villages have been vaccinated, 65 from Kampung Kuala Koh and 139 from the neighbouring Kampung Aring Lima. Authorities said those who have yet to be vaccinated were those who were showing symptoms of high fever and expecting mothers. Injections were postponed until their health improves or after their birth of their children. Eventually, everyone from the community will be administered with the vaccines to prevent diseases. The vaccination of the Orang Asli was carried out as suggested by the Health Ministry following the death of 15 Orang Asli, believed to be due to measles. Meanwhile, another 112 are receiving treatment at the Gua Musang Hospital and nearby clinics for showing the same symptoms. Moving on, the body of 47-year-old Tam Kok Kiong, who fell from a ferry into the Penang Channel, was found this morning. The victim's body was spotted by fishermen floating in the sea near Persiaran Gurney before rescue workers fished him out of the water. Police said Tam was a logistics agent manager in Georgetown and was identified through the identification documents found in his car, which was left unattended on the ferry. Tam was believed to have fallen into the sea at about 6:15 p.m. while on board the Kapas ferry, which was travelling from Butterworth to Georgetown. Following yesterday's incident, a search and rescue operation was launched involving various agencies. The victim's body was taken to the Sultan Abdul Halim terminal before being sent to the Seberang Jaya Hospital for post-mortem. Two people were killed in an accident involving 4 vehicles along the North-South Expressway southbound early today. In the 7:15 a.m. collision, motorcyclist 65-year-old Rahim Shafi and lorry driver 28-year-old Zainal Jasman died on the spot. The accident occurred when the motorcyclist, who was heading south, hit an object on the road, causing him to fall off his machine. Seconds later, a car approached and rammed into him. The trailer driver, upon seeing the motorcyclist on the road, applied his brakes before a trailer crashed into it at the rear. The deceased lorry driver was found pinned to his seat. Meanwhile, car driver 39-year-old Eng Beng Siu and the trailer driver Muhammad Shafiz Abdulaziz, aged 27, escaped unhurt. The bodies were sent to the Alor Gajah Hospital for post-mortem. After a secondary school student was found passed out near his school yesterday from drinking cheap alcohol, the Kuantan Education Department is now saying a supermarket in the city had allowed students to buy liquor. The incident involved 3 students who allegedly went on a drinking session instead of attending classes.
Kita duka cita lah macam mana pasar raya boleh menjual kepada murid dalam keadaan berpakaian sekolah dan dalam keadaan murid sekolah bawah umur berpakaian sekolah kita jual. Jadi saya tadi pun saya dah bercakap dengan YDP Dato' Hamdan Hussein, YDP Majlis Pembandaran Kuantan. Dato' YDP minta saya mengemukakan laporan lengkap untuk tindakan selanjutnya oleh beliau.
The department has since called their parents to record their statements and has promised a counselling session between the parents and students involved. Muhammad Raiza dismissed a claim that the students were forced to drink the cheap alcohol. A Year 6 pupil was held under remand after he allegedly raped a 4-year-old girl thrice since May in Batu Gajah Perak. It was understood that the victim was raped while she was being cared for by the boy's babysitter mother. Apparently, the boy had been influenced by pornographic videos before he raped the victim. According to police, the boy admitted to committing the offences recently after watching pornographic videos on a mobile phone, upon questioning by authorities. In a statement today, District Police Chief ACP Ahmad Adnan Basri said the girl's mother had taken her daughter to the Tanjung Tualang clinic last Friday after the girl complained of pain in her private parts the day before. The woman then lodged a police report after the doctor who examined the victim found a torn hymen and other tears in the girl's private parts. Based on initial investigations, The rapes occurred early in Ramadan on May 31st and June 17th. Police added that the boy is being held under remand until July 5th to facilitate the probe into the case under Section 376 of the Penal Code. The victim was also brought to the Raja Permaisuri Bainun Hospital for further checkup. Following these, authorities also urge parents to exercise caution when allowing their children to surf the internet. Coming up, Ivanka Trump is now the internet's new meme. Find out why after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Some 11 students from 7 schools in Pasir Gudang reportedly experienced nausea and vomiting during class this morning. Authorities are still monitoring the air quality at 85 schools around Pasir Gudang, but readings are indicating an absence of toxic chemicals in the district.
Sehingga jam 11 pagi, tadi terdapat 11 kes dilaporkan membabitkan 7 sekolah, iaitu Sekolah Kebangsaan Kopok, Sekolah Kebangsaan Tanjung Puteri Resort, Sekolah Kebangsaan Kongkong Laut, Tapis Bukit Dahlia, SMK Tanjung Puteri Resort, SK Saintek dan SK Cendana. Namun mangsa hanya dirujuk di Klinik Kesihatan Pasir Gudang tanpa perlu dirujuk ke HSI.
He added an 18-member team from the Health Ministry has also been deployed to the affected schools to provide psychological support services. Meanwhile, a total of 6 industrial premises have been ordered to halt operations temporarily under the Environmental Quality Act. Datuk Mokhtar Muhammad Noor has quit the task force probing the disappearances of Pastor Raymond Koh and activist Amri Chetmat in the wake of opposition from certain quarters. According to the Home Ministry, the former Royal Malaysian Police PDRM Legal Unit Chief withdrew from the 6-member team to preserve the integrity and transparency of the task force. In a statement, the ministry said several NGOs had questioned Datuk Mokhtar's appointment, believing that he could be directly involved in the disappearances of Koh and Amri. However, the ministry stressed that Datuk Mokhtar was never involved in the 2 cases, and his appointment to the task force was based on his professionalism and expertise. The ministry also expressed its gratitude to Datuk Mokhtar for his commitment in wanting to help seek justice for the families of the missing people and his willingness to consider the public views of his membership in the task force so that it will not undermine the credibility of the investigation and the findings to be submitted subsequently. It also stated that Datuk Mokhtar's replacement will be appointed soon. On June 26, Home Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced the setting up of task force with former High Court Judge Dr. Abdul Rahim Uda as the chairman. Now, the first prototype of air mobility is expected to be launched as early as October. Entrepreneur Development Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Rezwan Mat Yusof said the development of the prototype does not involve any government spending.
Sukacita saya memperingati ahli-ahli Dewan. Projek Air Mobility yang melibatkan pembangunan prototipe kereta terbang tidak melibatkan 1 sen pun duit rakyat. Ianya adalah inisiatif daripada beberapa syarikat persendirian dan kita kena sentiasa menjalinkan hubungan dengan private sectors atau syarikat-syarikat persendirian supaya industri ini dirangsangkan selari dengan pembangunan industri antarabangsa.
He was replying to a question from Pasir Putih MP Dr. Nik Muhammad Zawawi Saleh, who wanted to know the status of the development of the flying car project at the Dewan Rakyat today. Dr. Muhammad Rezwan said the air mobility will apply the latest technologies such as drones, big data, analytics and artificial intelligence that is fast developing internationally. The ministry has also held discussions with the Transport Ministry and the Department of Civil Aviation on necessary requirements or laws for the industry. Now let's move on to our daily segment Clickbait, where we take a look at what's trending and making rounds in the cyber world today. Last weekend, the US first daughter Ivanka Trump joined her father, President Donald Trump, to attend the G20 summit in Osaka, Japan, as part of his delegation. During the summit, a clip showing world leaders chatting and Ivanka Trump attempting to chime in the convo went viral, with one of the reposts on Twitter raking in over 21 million views. The video got netizens buzzing as it was, well, take a look at it yourself. The context of the conversation is not known, which was between French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Theresa May, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Christine Lagarde, the French head of the International Monetary Fund. But at one point, here was what they were heard talking.
As soon as you start talking about the economic aspect of it, though, a lot of people start listening who wouldn't otherwise listen.
And the same with the defence side of it, in terms of the whole sort of ecosystem. It's been very male-dominated.
The president's daughter was immediately criticized, with people asking why she was there and what she was doing jumping into the conversation. One Twitter user pointed out Lagarde's mystifying expression after Trump's interjection. One netizen stressed that G20 is only for world leaders and not your typical bring your daughter to work day. Well, it looks like the internet found its way to another new challenge, and this time it's the bottle cap challenge. Kicked off by a Taekwondo master on Instagram known as Master Fa, the challenge has spread to netizens worldwide, and even international celebrities are giving it a spin. Take a look. However, some netizens found it to be quite challenging and decided to have fun with the concept instead. On to some business news. The World Bank has reaffirmed its confidence that Malaysia is well positioned to achieve the high-income economy status by 2024. According to its lead economist Richard Record, it is possible to achieve the status as long as a country's gross national income (GNI) continues to grow between 4% and 4.5%. As of 2018, Malaysia's GNI stood at $10,460, which was $1,915 below the threshold level that the World Bank has set to define the high-income country status.
So we think it's likely to pass the high-income country threshold by around 2024. The threshold is currently set just over $12,000 per capita in GNI terms. Malaysia, at the end of 2018, had a GNI per capita of $10,460. So just a little bit less than $2,000 short of that threshold.
He added that Malaysia's success in achieving the coveted high-income status also depends on the exchange rate dynamics and the movement of the high-income threshold based on the US dollar, among other factors. The bank said the weakness in the external sector is likely to persist into the near term, with softening global demand weighing on export growth. And when we return, wall collapse leaves dozens dead. Stay with us. Welcome back. A tense calm descended on Hong Kong early on Tuesday, hours after police fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters who had stormed the legislature in chaotic scenes. Locals have resumed protests against an extradition bill in a direct challenge to Beijing, who is now calling for a criminal probe over violent offenders. A group of activists occupied and vandalized the Legislative Council building for several hours on Monday night, after breaking away from a peaceful protest that commemorates the annual pro-democracy march. Hundreds of police officers used tear gas to clear the building. China has accused protesters of serious illegal actions that trample on the rule of law, before calling Hong Kong for the criminal probe. Now, critics are saying that police involved in dispersing the protesters have used traps and played games with them, as officers had been defending the building for nearly 8 hours before they launched the raid. However, police have denied the accusations, saying that the rioters kept them under siege. In the meantime, the status of the bill remains at a standstill, as the city's chief executive, Carrie Lam, claims that she doesn't intend to continue debating it and that it will expire in July 2020 at the end of the term. The semi-autonomous financial hub has been thrown into crisis by weeks of demonstrations over a bill that would allow Hong Kong citizens to be extradited to the Chinese mainland. Critics worry China would use the bill to prosecute people for political reasons, and that it would erode freedoms people in Hong Kong have. President Donald Trump said on Monday that trade talks with China, which had stalled out in May, have already begun following his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit over the weekend. The renewed talks between the two countries were being held by phone, but Trump says they are also meeting in person. However, the US president emphasized that any deal between the two economic superpowers would need to lean in the US's favor. His argument was that China's ample trade surplus over the US for years should mean that a potential trade deal with Beijing should be balanced with an advantage to the US. Trump and Xi had agreed during a bilateral meeting at the summit in Osaka, Japan, to hold off on imposing new tariffs on imports of each other's goods and to move forward with trade negotiations. This following a series of trade wars between the two, starting with the US slapping duties on $250 billion in Chinese goods. In return, Beijing imposed tariffs on $110 billion in US goods. 3 men were arrested on Tuesday, accused of links to Daesh over an alleged plot to attack police stations, embassies and defense facilities in central Sydney. Ishaq El-Matari, aged 20, were among the 3 men arrested by the Australian police in raids in the city suburbs after their online activities raised suspicion. 2 of them will face charges of being members of a terrorist organization and of preparations to carry out terror attacks. The 3rd man, described as an associate, will be charged with lesser offences. New South Wales Police Assistant Commissioner Mick Willings said the men knew each other via social media, including WhatsApp and Telegram, and shared a like-minded philosophy. The plots were said to be in the early stages, but included moves to import weapons and explosives to target facilities in the central business district. Over in India, monsoon rain caused wall collapses in the country's financial capital of Mumbai on Tuesday, killing at least 27 people as a second straight day of heavy rain disrupted rail and air traffic. The incident also injured 69 others. It was triggered after more than 300 millimeters of rain fell over 24 hours in some areas, flooding streets and railway tracks and forcing the suspension of some suburban train services. About thousands of villagers living across the Mithi River had to shift following the rising water levels. Meanwhile, flights from Mumbai Airport, India's second biggest, were also delayed after a SpiceJet flight overshot the runway while landing. Train services on the colonial-era rail network were reduced to waterlogged tracks, while motorists were seen pushing cars through flooded streets. Sony Pictures Entertainment just dropped the latest trailer of Jumanji: The Next Level, where the characters get sent back into the game with a whole new adventure led by teen player Spencer, played by Alex Wolff. The film, which also features Dwayne Johnson, Karen Gillan, Kevin Hart and Jack Black, will be hitting Malaysian theatres on December 11th. With that, I'm Muhammad Ahmad Hamdan. Thanks for watching and have a good one.